Welcome to our webinar. We're so excited you're here and people are logging on from all over the country. I'm Judy Bratt, CEO of Summit Insight. We're just going to get started as people are logging on and getting comfortable. And Heather, your co-host, would you disable the chimes?
Yes, one moment.
Great. Excellent. All right. Well, welcome. We're so excited you're here. And Heather, we ready to go? Excellent. Let's do this. I'm Judy Bratt, CEO of Summit Insight, and welcome to What Your Contracting Officer Wants in Federal Fourth Quarter and How to Give It to Them. I'm here to bring you the best of my 33 years of experience in the federal arena as author, speaker, consultant. Summit Insight is a professional services company. We work with established companies in the federal arena who want to grow their federal business. And for us, marketing and sales are acts of service. This is my opportunity for us to get to know each other better. I welcome your questions. We've got some juicy information for you. I want to make sure we leave time for some good conversation. So please, we're going to have a number of ways to participate. I'm here to also introduce to you my co-host and moderator, Heather Herbine with Transcendent Marketing. Transcendent Marketing are my partners and also work with more than a few government contractors, being a one-stop shop for everything to do with marketing automation and communication. That includes webinars, call agents, and the whole shebang. So Heather Herbine, be sure to drop your information in the chat so that somebody wants to know how more to have a transcendent federal marketing experience, they'll know where to find you.
All right, absolutely.
Okay, great. Here's what we're going to cover. Here are the factors affecting buyers at federal fiscal year end. Are they slowing us or speeding us up or flagging us down? What's happening for contracting officers right now? What are the 3 big mistakes and how can we avoid them? What are the 8 things we have to do if we want them to return our calls? What do they buy easily at federal fiscal year end? When does certification make a difference at this time of year? And how do you drive more business by September 30th? We're going to have a ton of resources, and by all means, drop your own contact information of what you do in the chat as another way to communicate and connect with each other. I want this to be just a great experience for everyone who's here. So ways to participate. Drop questions, please, in the chat box. Heather is going to relay those to me as we go, so we're not having to leave everything till the end. And raise a hand if you've got a question as well that you'd like some attention to, and we'll have the chance to unmute you for live Q&A. You can book a call with me, and we'll have a link where you can do that at the end, and you can expect a follow-up email by the close of business Friday that will include the link to the recording and all the goodies that we're talking about. All right. So that being said, get out your notebook. You're going to take action. At the end, I'm going to ask you what your big aha is and what you committed to do and by when. Help us help you. Heather, tell us a little bit about the poll. We're going to open it now, and we would really love to get your feedback. It helps us better understand who you are, what you need, and how we can help you.
So the poll's live.
Great. So we're asking a few things about, a little bit about what's your involvement is in the federal arena, what's going on in your company, the importance of federal business to growing your company over the next year, annual revenue, kind of what range are you sitting at, and would you consider actually working with someone to help you reach the kind of success that you're looking for. All right. So by all means, if you've got a question, you can drop it in the chat as well. So let's dig into the content. The insights I'm bringing you also include things I've learned in a conversation with my good friend Emily Harmon, a former naval person, Naval Academy graduate who also finished her career with the United States Navy as head of small business programs and has gone on to host the Onward podcast and become a great coach for others. So she's shared some of her insights, and I'm going to be able to, in turn, pass them on to you. So, top trends affecting federal fiscal year end spend. First thing, agencies, almost all of them have use or lose budgets that can both speed them up and slow them down. And so the good news is that if you've got a relationship with a federal buyer, they may indeed be exactly ready for your call to say, hey, is there anything we can help you with? On the other hand, if you don't have a relationship, chasing it at this time of year might not go so well for you. So be aware that spending their money by the end of the fiscal year is actually not their biggest problem. So you be aware of what their problem is versus something that's just affecting what their priorities are going to be. September 30th is the last day of the federal fiscal year, but that doesn't mean that all of the buying channels and buying options are open right till midnight that day. Something else to ask your federal buyers is, hey, I just want to follow proper protocol. Tell me, what are the cutoffs? What's the last day you can make a micro purchase? What's the last day you can order off the GSA schedule? What's the last day to drop an IDIQ? What's the last day before September 30th? You can actually put a fully fledged solicitation on the street. So be sensitive to what's going on for them. This year, we're going to run into continuing resolutions. That means that come October 1st, many of our federal buyers are not going to have a full budget to work with, and we don't know when that's going to happen. Congress hasn't finished passing the budget for the fiscal year that starts on October 1st. Some of your departments then may be in a really urgent hurry to get the buys done by September 30th, because then their hands may be tied for an undefined period of time in the new year. Be aware of that. The other thing to think about, though, is if you can't reach them, be aware that once you got to October 1st, they may be more willing and able to get some time on the calendar because they might not have the spending authority that they would like to have at that time of year. That opens opportunities. So while we're talking about federal fourth quarter, I want you to be thinking past that and laying foundation for the next one as well. Telework is a factor. It's a conversation to have, not just because it affects whether or not somebody's easy to reach at their home office or easy to find at all, but have the conversation with folks about, hey, are you going to be teleworking in the year ahead? Do you know? Are there things that we have that could make that easier? Are there ways that we can adapt our products or services to make it easier for you to deliver your mission and to work with your colleagues? Emergency and contingency and disaster response. This stuff is real. This is a time of year when extreme weather often hits both the Midwest and Tornado Alley, the Southeast with hurricanes, fires in the West, and extra spending can happen to facilitate disaster response. If you have products and services that would be needed, the time to make connections is not when there's a disaster, but before there is. Keep that in mind as well. I got a call from someone who was representing a contractor out in the Midwest who had been asked to stand up an operation to receive Afghan refugees. And that person needed back office help to go and set up that operation. So be aware that there's all kinds of things happening. Watch the news and work your network. Contract vehicles. Some of them are just coming online, like CIOSP4 is just chugging through the proposal process. Other things are just wrapping up. So be aware of what contract vehicles are active, which ones are becoming active, and which ones are tailing off, and be ready to have conversations with your buyer about what's their easy button. And we'll talk about that in a moment. As well, new fiscal year may mean that your federal agency may be changing its mind on what they are setting their priorities to be for the best in class vehicles, the contracting vehicles they want federal buyers to be using. So these are all some things to be thinking about, things that are maybe high on your federal buyer's mind at this time of year. So what is behind the contracting officer's desk? What's going on for these people right now? The thing I want you to keep in mind is they're just human. This is Josephine Cobb. Josephine Cobb was working at Travis Air Force Base for 50 years, a 50-year career. Can you imagine all the people she met and the things she saw? And so what's happening? What would be happening for somebody like Josephine? These are real humans. This time of year, they're stressed. We have just been through and continue to go through many, many months of pandemic, and that's adding to everybody's stress and our ability to stay focused. We don't get as much done now as we did 2 years ago, simply because of the wear and tear this has on us. You're feeling stressed, so is your federal human. Take a deep breath. Keep that in mind when you're talking to them. Be kind, be energetic, be positive. They're overworked. Lots of folks are sick. Lots of them are taking on responsibilities for other people. Bear that in mind. Sometimes the people in the chair don't have as much experience as you would like. You might know more about their job than they do. Be ready to go gently. You don't ever want to be in the position of saying that you're telling a contracting officer how to do their job. You can say, I just want to follow proper protocol. What's yours? I was reading this chunk of the federal acquisition regulations on sole source, and my goodness, that sounds complicated. When we're not slam against the end of the fiscal year, could you give me a sense of how that works in your office? Remember that every conversation is the opportunity to lay a foundation for the next conversation. You're playing the long game. Your contracting officer is under a tremendous amount of pressure to award work through open competition. That's a big deal. You may think that sole source would be easy for you. If you look at the list of stuff a contracting officer has to do to award sole source, you would think twice before you think, this is going to be great for me. What's it going to be like for them? It can be easier for them to follow the rules by finding a way to openly compete the requirement. So it appears that everybody's had a fair shot, but still be able to define the requirement if they know you in a way that sets you up to make it easy for them to award the work to you. Okay, so I want you to think about competition as your friend. Your task is to find a way that's easy for the contracting officer to get the work done and also easy for you to win through competition. We're in, at this time of year, fourth quarter. It's August or September. Contracting officers, do you think they have kids, families? Sure. They may have kids going off to college for the first time. They may have little ones that are going to kindergarten for the first time. All of these really big life experiences, these are happening every day. And suddenly, oh, are our kids masked or unmasked? Are they in school? Are they out of school? Whoops, we're going to go in school from home again. Holy cow. And so these things are happening for you. They're also happening for our contracting officers. Have a break. Ask them how you're doing. How's your family doing? Take a minute and ask that question. Care about who they are. Even if it turns out you take 2 conversations to get around to talking to the thing, it can still make a difference for them. They are truly doing their best under what for all of us are really, really trying circumstances. Even if, you don't get a call right away. You don't get a call for 3 days. You don't get a call for 3.5 weeks. I want you to still be thinking that and presuming they are doing their very best. I had this experience with a piece of fourth quarter business. I had this conversation back in April with my buyer, and we followed up and I sent all the emails and had all the meetings, and it was April, it was May, nothing, June, nothing, July, nothing, August. Oh, we think we're almost kind of sort of going to do it by the end of the fiscal year, not kicked over into December, but we stayed in touch. And finally, I got to do the project for them. And better yet, I got paid within 24 hours of finishing the work, which was awesome. But that happened because I presumed the best about my buyer and stayed in touch. Think about ways that you can make their lives easier. make their lives easier. And that isn't always, we can help you meet your small business goals. Josephine Cobb is not losing any sleep over whether she awarded enough contracts to small business nearly as much as, did I meet all of my clients' needs? Did I get all of the contracts set up and awarded on time and with the right specifications and get qualified vendors for my end users and the people I'm supporting? So be well informed about the buying plans, about solicitations on the street, about whether the person you're trying to talk to actually needs what you do. And we're going to talk more about that in a minute. Know how they can get to you easily. Look at the data. Be aware of how the past contract award data shows they actually do business, and show up to the conversation already aware of what their easy button is. And be ready to do business with partners who might be eligible for set-asides that you're not. If you aren't part of an existing contract vehicle, consider finding partners that can make it easier for somebody to do business the way they want to do business. Remember, when you talk about your federal buyer, and I'm just going to skate over the top of this for a second, your federal buyer includes players at 5 layers. Real quick, here they are, and I'm going to give you a resource where you can find out more at the end. So real quick, your players, all your layers include, first, the contracting specialist. All right. They don't have the authority to sign the contract. They're often the point of contact on the solicitation. They're making sure the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed. They're tossing out your bid if it's not compliant. They're supporting the contracting officer, who does have the warrant, the legal authority to sign a contract that binds your company to the government of the United States to deliver your work, your products, your services. The end users, the people who are stuck with the consequences of having you as a vendor and are involved in defining the requirement. The stakeholder, the base commander, the capo di tutti capi. And the 5th layer is the prime contractor, who has relationships with all of those people already, but you may need relationships with them to team, or even to nudge them out or hack a little bit of piece of work off their contract, or if they're going to size out or time out of a set-aside eligibility or program, team with them to flip the contract over and share the work. Now, notice who's missing. There's one player missing here, bottom left-hand corner, small business specialist. The small business specialist is not your buyer. They can help, but only to the extent that you've done a lot of homework. More about that in a great resource I have for you in our GovCon Personas Guide. We'll give you the link at the end. All right. Now, avoid these top 3 mistakes. First, avoid sending spam emails to government employees. This was something that Emily Harmon brought to my attention. She said, when you just send an email to every single person on the list, then all of us are overloaded. All of us are trying to sort out who should respond to this thing. You're using up lots and lots of cycles, lots and lots of people's time. And that also not only does you a disadvantage, but it hurts all the contractors, because people are trying to get through all of the email and correspondence. So instead of, I was having this conversation with someone who said, hey, I've got a new business. I've got family to care for. I need income. I've got a fresh 8A. How can I just send out an email to all the Osdaboos and tell them about my 8A and they can award work to me? That's not going to be really effective. Instead, research and contact the individual person about the specific need or opportunity that you want to discuss. Here's a tip. Put in the subject line the solicitation number or name of the competition that you're actually writing about. Make sure your email is no more than about 125, 150 words long. And you can combine that with your voicemails. And we can talk more about voicemails and Q&A if you would like, because I had a really interesting discussion with one of my clients about voicemails. So Heather, if I don't get around to voicemails, circle back and remind me, because we got a voicemail tip for you.
Absolutely.
Avoid mistake number 2, coming across as desperate to say, hey, I can help you. I'm a service disabled, veteran-owned, woman-owned 8A business in a hub zone. We can help you meet all 4 of those things. Well, that in and of itself isn't what the agency or the federal department or office exists to do. Those goals are important, but they aren't the primary thing that that agency exists to deliver. And it really broke my heart to have this conversation with a business owner who said, "Hey, this is important. I really need to win this contract to pay my household bills." I said, "I feel you. I have been there. But the one thing I can tell you is that the mission of that federal buyer you're calling is not to keep you and your family alive by awarding you a contract. Instead, it may very well be that you have expertise and product that really will make a difference for them. But in order to connect with them, you've got to make the focus on what they do. So focus on how your company can satisfy a requirement that supports that individual person and their mission in the agency that they are, help them perform better, help them do their job better. So how is their life, their mission, their agency going to be different when they work with you? Make that front and center, and you're going to increase your odds of getting your calls returned as well. And that's what we're going to be talking about in just a minute. Avoid this mistake as well. A lot of the time people get to the fourth quarter, the fiscal year, they're going, I really have these big goals. I'm just hunting for these 2 or 3 multi-million-dollar projects to bid. We win one, we're there. Well, the reality is that even a company that is reasonably experienced in the federal marketplace, and they're bidding carefully, they win 1 out of 4. I mean, if in baseball, if you're batting 250, you're hitting 1 out of every 4 balls, you're going to the majors. 1 out of 4, that's it. And that's only if you've worked really hard, you've got talent, you've got relationships. If you want to win the big contracts and you're realizing that when you're looking these opportunities, you're bidding them, but you don't have relationships. Remember the players at all the layers? Then here's what I want to suggest that you do instead. Remember that your federal buyer is one of the most risk-averse life forms on the planet. And so they want the chance to try you out, do a small project first. So start small and be persistent is time and again the most frequent advice that successful federal contractors give to those who are on the road behind you. One of my favorite stories is by Jennifer Rhodes, who is executive vice president of service disabled veteran-owned company Tagents in Northern Virginia. They were doing a records management project for Washington Headquarters Service, the Pentagon. It's a $10,000 project. How exciting. Well, it was the fourth quarter of the fiscal year. They were following up. Jennifer was just asking the question, hey, if you were me, who would you be talking to? Is there anybody else who really has need of the kind of services we have? And the person they were talking to said, go over there, talk to those guys. And they had another meeting and they kind of drafted some requirements. They had some more conversations. Within 6 weeks of starting those conversations, they had landed an award for $1 million. I am not making this up, but that started with being able to demonstrate that they were a reliable vendor. They did exactly what they said they were going to do, and they became someone that others wanted to refer work to. So starting small and being persistent is really powerful. So to recap, here are the 3 tips to remember at fiscal year end. Make communications personal and specific. Focus on what they need, not what you need. Ideally, you're going toward the same goal. Make it about them. And remember, small is beautiful and powerful. Now, want them to return your call? All right. If you do, here's 8 things you need to do and remember. Engage well. And here's what I mean by that. First, again, be specific. Call a specific person with a specific requirement or question about a really specific opportunity. All right. If you're going, this takes too long. Well, if you don't have time to learn about your federal buyer, they sure as heck do not have time to learn about you. The time you spend staying invested in that research means that you're going to keep showing up, because it can take between 15 to 30 touches to go from contact to contract. So you can not only stay engaged, but have the heart and the enthusiasm to show up when you know your research has shown that this person really does need what you do. Be polite. My friend Dottie Romo, who's now senior acquisition official in the Department of the Treasury, said this to me. And I went, what do you mean be polite? She said, you would not believe the rude voicemails people leave. I said, Dottie, what's a rude voicemail? She said, it goes like this. Hi, it's Sarah. This is the third voicemail I've left you this week. Would you please return my call? I really need to know the details on the solicitation. Click. Really? Look, and now is where I'm going to talk about voicemail. I would drop in the chat right now on a scale of 1 to 5, when 1 is, oh my goodness, I hate leaving voicemails. And 5 is, I can hardly wait to leave a voicemail. Number 1 through 5, drop it in the chat. How do you feel about voicemail? Let's see. Let me see how you feel about voicemails right now. 3, says Caitlin. 3. 3, says Michael. How do you feel about voicemail? It's okay. I got a lot of zeros considering my voice one. Oh, baby. Well, if you've got a cold, that's really tough. So now I'm going to ask you a different question. What if you think about the idea that you could have 30 seconds of uninterrupted attention of somebody you really want to talk to and be right inside their head? How incredibly intimate. 30 seconds of their undivided attention. Did you ever think of your voicemail like that? Your voicemail represents you. What if the voicemail you're leaving gives somebody an experience? They go, wow, if this is what it feels like to have voicemail from Bob, I wonder what it feels like to talk to Bob in person. I got to return Bob's call. And you're going to have 2 or 3 of those emails. I squandered my undergraduate career as a competitive debater. And one of the rules of competitive debating where I learned it was you were forbidden to read your speech. You could refer to notes, but so working from a script is something that for me, I found just anathema. I just didn't want to do it. I also find that if I have clear notes, I can leave an enthusiastic, well-focused, concise voicemail and really mean it and give people a great experience and also get my message delivered and get out in less than 30 seconds. If I kind of wander around and go blah, 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 I've used up all my time. So be polite, be concise, be persistent. I had this conversation with a client this morning who said, you know what I've realized is these are really busy people. I gave up too soon. And so it is okay to call 3 or 4 times in a week, call at different times of the day, have a chipper voicemail, back it up with email, have your email queued up to go. Your voicemail says, hey, sorry, I missed you. Check your email. That's what it's about. And leave your number and say, if I don't hear from you by noon tomorrow, I will give you a call back Thursday afternoon. And make a note and call them back Thursday afternoon. Now you've queued up 3 or 4 different pieces there. But how you do anything is how you do everything. When you have the email, it lands when you said it would. You call back when you say you would. Oh, you get voicemail again. That's fine. By the time you get to the 3rd or 4th voicemail, these are public servants. Service is literally in their name. They really feel bad about not returning your call. And you've been chipper and enthusiastic. You're good with the idea they may be busy. You hope they're okay. That shifts the whole game. By the time you get to the 3rd message, you have moved from the risk of being pestilential to the honored place of being the one who persisted in a good way. Get to the point. Again, specific thing, specific need, how you can help, the number, something a tiny bit memorable about your company, check your email, you're done. Really important. Notice who you're talking to and don't go into all the technical details about your offer, your contract vehicles, or this and that with the admin person who is answering the phone. All right. Get the right level of detail for the right person. Next, focus on what your target organization typically buys and at year end. Sometimes the reason why they don't return your call is because They don't buy what you do. Another reason they don't return your calls, they don't need what you do right now. And sometimes they don't buy what you do at this time of year. Data can show you a lot of those things. Focus on how your target organization typically buys at year end. And these are conversations that you can have months in advance. But always when you're trying to answer that question, if I were them, what would my easy button be? What does the data show you they like to do in purchasing at this time of year? Data will show you these things. Do respond to sources sought and requests for information. The question is what your contracting officer wants. The question I'm trying to answer is not what are all the ways that I can pull a rabbit out of a hat and have a lot of cash dump on my head by September 30th if I'm only really thinking about it now. That's not realistic. But remember, this is the long game. Every conversation you're having now is also laying a foundation for the conversations you're having in October, because the conversations in October are the things that lead to the wins 9 or 10 months from now. Be of good heart. This stuff happens, but be patient. So the resources sought and the requests for information are ways to engage, ways for people to get to know you, see your best. It also means that you have the ability, if you take the time to respond to those things, you can then follow up. You can have a follow-up conversation. Sometimes the thing that your federal buyer needs is evidence that they shopped. They need to show that they've done market research. You're giving them something else they need when you respond and you participate. Contact your existing customers. Somebody who's already done business with you is 12 times more likely to do business with you again than somebody who's never heard of you. My friend Mark Amtower had done research one year, and he said 67% of federal IT buyers, people who have authority to spend billions of dollars of money, never get a single phone call from anyone. Now, those of you who are millennial generation and later, I've realized this can be really challenging because younger generations are much more used to, well, let's just text or email. Phone call is vulnerable. My niece and nephews my brother tells me, don't even want to talk to servers in restaurants. The ability to have a conversation, to be fearless, not only leave a voicemail, but have a conversation with another federal human. It's a vanishing skill. If it's something that you're feeling woozy about, buck up. Even the effort of trying will set you apart from those who are just relying on text and automated stuff, because you're dealing with real humans. So your existing customers, here's one of the ways that they can be super helpful to you. Not only do you want to anticipate their needs, and I've just put that down there twice because it's that important, but ask for referrals. Hey, is there anything we can do for you? First of all, anything comes up, let me know. Second, remember your network. Hey, even if it's something I don't do, I will find you somebody who does. You are more than your product or service. You are also your network and connection and Rolodex. You've got friends that you know would be able to help your federal buyers if they do things that you don't do. So you want to be the person on speed dial, their go-to person. Ask them, hey, if you were me, who would you be talking to? Who else might, if you don't have time or money right now, do you know somebody else that I should be talking to? If they know you well, they like you, you've performed well, you're giving them the opportunity to do a favor to a colleague, to introduce somebody they care about to the opportunity to be successful by working with you. So what do they buy most easily at fiscal year end? Where's the low hanging fruit? Here we go. All right. So here's a few grab and go ideas, particularly for micro purchase and simplified acquisition. On govology.com, I have a course, Mighty Micro Purchase, Sole Source Superpower, and Simplified Acquisition, Simply Awesome, where I go into the details of these two types of streamlined purchasing. A federal buyer who's authorized can spend up to $10,000 on it with minimal competition, if any, and pay you on a credit card. What do you get besides money in the bank? When that happens, you get past performance. Past performance really opens doors. Simplified acquisition is worth learning about because under those rules, If a federal buyer knows you and likes you, you can do the work at a fair and reasonable price. They can do something as simple as make 3 phone calls and award work to you that's worth up to or even more than $250,000. That's without contract vehicles. That's without GSA schedules. So let's come back to what could they possibly be buying from you? Some of the things that people buy at year end, they've got budget for training. Maybe you've got a lunch and learn, some recorded courses that you've already got ready to go. You need to check with the buyer about how much of the training has to be delivered versus just contracted for and booked for later in the year. Have that conversation, but training for sure can be something that they save for year-end budgets. Another thing in professional services, can you do a study or an analysis? That can work a couple of ways, because if you've got a big, huge thing you do, well, a requirements analysis could be the first step. So that could be a phase 1 that can open out to other things. So it not only works well to mop up or solve or make the start to solving a problem that has been persistent they haven't gotten around to. Your buyer can check the box for having made some progress, and that leaves the door open for the two of you to work together if you show you've done a great job in phase 1. Pilot program. Got an idea, haven't tried it, you think it could be great for the whole region or the whole office. How could you do a small pilot program to test the concept, show the results? An assessment could be, again, a different way of doing an analysis. It might be some kind of a survey, a way to figure out what are deeper needs, what is the state of satisfaction or the state of performance for the kind of product or service that you offer. What do they need now? What would they like to see happen better? A report. You're doing all this analysis. You could certainly do a report on something or other. For sure, supplies, depending on what it is that you offer. This is also a time of year when federal buyers stock up on things they know they're going to need in the year ahead, or spare parts. So those are some ideas I want you to think about. Write it down, because I may ask you this at the end. What could you do? What could you offer, product or service, for less than $10,000? Have 3 ideas in your back pocket. Have an easy way for somebody to get to know you, to get to work with you. Now, when does certification make a difference? I've said time and again, don't lead with your certification. Please don't make that the most important thing about you. That being said, I've also talked to small business specialists who get calls from contractors saying, do you have any 8As? Do you have any people who can do my requirement and can help tick the box? Those conversations do happen. And so here's situations where if you have a relationship, then that certification can work to your advantage. If you don't have a relationship, it can be the place to start the relationship. Your certification makes a difference when your company can deliver what's needed. Ideally, you've got past performance in one or more federal agencies, and don't write yourself off if you don't have a government prime contract or subcontract under your belt. If you have experience with a commercial customer, a name that people would recognize that has a problem with a similar size and scale and scope to the federal buyer that you're trying to woo or engage. So certification in combination with capability and past performance, that can start to open some doors. Hi, I have lots of certifications. That can look risky. Hi, I've got these certifications and I've done the job and solved your problem for someone who looks just like you yesterday afternoon. Oh, let's talk. Next, in order for a federal buyer to limit competition, to set something aside, that means they've got a fewer number of bids or potential buyers to consider, people kicking down their doors. That's good. But in order to do that, they still need to know that there's 2 or more responsive, as in answer the questions, responsible, can do the work, small businesses in that certification category who are capable of doing the work at a fair and reasonable price. Something to keep in mind. Do you have a list of 4 or 5 competitors in your set aside categories that you'd be happy to go nose to nose with and you think you could win against? That list of, hey, there's 5 of us women-owned businesses. Here's a list of 7 veteran-owned businesses that could all compete for this requirement. You've not only made it easier for your federal buyer to have a more limited competition pool, but you've saved them the time that they might not have to do that market research. So your certification in combination with your courage and your smarts can really help. All 4 of the major set-aside programs, as well as overall FAR Part 19 small business status, all come with the authority to let a contracting officer award by sole source, but it is a ton of work. So be aware that that's not the easiest option, but your 1 or more certifications can open up the possibility for award by other than full and open competition, which is Govy speak for sole source. Finally, especially in a category where the agency isn't meeting their goal, but notice that's on the bottom of the list, not on the top. So how can you do more business by September 30th? How fast can you go from 0 to 60? Things to remember: know how what you sell can solve your target organization's need. Have those bite-sized offers ready, stuff under $10,000, under $250,000. Make it easy for your target organization to get to you. Be aware of and offer access to the contract vehicles the data shows they like to use when they purchase. Respond to the sources sought and requests for information. Attend industry days throughout the year. If you're going to industry days in September, the people who are really running those events may turn out to be folks who need to have their file filled with evidence that they did their best to reach out to lots of small businesses, even if they didn't make their numbers. So beware the value of and what's really happening in an event when you get to late August or early September. And for sure, you're not attending that because you're expecting somebody's going to drop a bucket of cash on your head. You're playing the long game, opening opportunities for the year ahead. Introduce your company's capabilities to the players at all 5 layers. You might not necessarily be presenting your capabilities to the base commander, but you do need to know what that person is about. Make sure that the players at all the layers know who you are and why you're important to them. Network and build relationships with your competitive mates as well, and with industry associations and even specialist consultants, lawyers, people who specialize in all kinds of things I don't do, like proposal writing, contracts, joint venture agreements. Have a good Rolodex of the right people who have great expertise to offer and help you be successful. Get on the contracting vehicles your target buyers use. Perform the living socks off the contracts that you are on. Nothing opens doors better than superlative past performance and outstanding CPARs. Document and share past performance stories. This is a time of year when, and you might even still have time to do this, putting together at least the list of what are our best past performance stories. If somebody asks, have we done this? Have we delivered this product or this service for somebody in that situation? Have that in an internal spreadsheet that you can pull up quickly, that you and your team go, oh yeah, no, we did one of those. Here's the person. Here's the background. That person would love to talk to you about how that happened. You can certainly prepare a 1-pager with those past performance stories. You can even, and I'm seeing more of this, video is super powerful with the right person helping you put together a succinct script and the right footage. You can have a 60-second story that can just make people go, oh my gosh, I have to talk to you now. All right. So if you're looking for somebody who can do that, then let me know. I've got some great choices and people who have got some great experience who are doing some work for me like that. So that's it. We're at the point where we talked about some of the trends and factors in play at fiscal year and things related to people's priorities, things driving their spending of money now, things slowing them down in the year to come. What's happening for contracting officers right now? Lots of pressure, lots of stress, lots of appreciation for somebody who really sees them as a human being and shows up smart and can help them save time and perform well. Avoiding those 3 big mistakes: spamming people and being unspecific, coming across as desperate, and just going for the big fish. Don't do those things. We talked about all the things you can do to get them to return your call, what they buy easily at fiscal year end, when certification makes a difference, and how to drive more business. I would love to get your questions on anything that would make a difference for you to drive more business by fiscal year end. And we've got our poll out there. We would love to hear more about you. But tell me this, what one thing are you going to try based on what you've just learned here today? Drop it in the chat. I would love to know. What one thing are you going to do? Meantime, somebody asked difference between requests for information and sources sought. One way I'd explain it is that a request for information can be really, really early and be, hi, the government is kind of thinking of doing a thing. Could we do it? How could we approach this thing? There's no necessarily commitment to the money or that anything is actually going to happen. Sources sought can often be related to, hey, we want to know whether or not there are any small businesses who can do this thing. Now, people use them different ways, but that can be one distinction. Okay. What else are you going to do? Because you're on this webinar. Voicemail, someone says, yeah, write up 2 or 3 different good voicemails and start to use them and fine tune them. Figure out what you can do for less than 10K. Put together 3 bite-sized options for micro purchases. Awesome, Caitlin. That's exactly right. These are great things to do. Super. So right now, for sure, I am delighted to take any other questions that you've got. If you've got a situation, you're trying to land some business by fiscal year end, I'd love to hear what's on your mind and see if there's any specific thing I can answer for you that will help. And in the meantime, we're going to move to resources. So watch the chat because Heather's going to start to add resources in the chat for you. As we're rolling through to the end of federal fourth quarter, we're in a really critical time to do something that can make a huge difference for you. And I'm going to tell you what that is and give you some resources for it. So I want to encourage you to invest your time and your attention into the federal sales fourth quarter hot wash. We've got an infographic for you and the link's going into the chat now. Here are 10 steps to do the after action review to really get squeeze the final return on investment from all the money you spent all the way through the federal fiscal year and stop and say, hey, what did we learn? What could we do better? What are the steps you have to take to get that final squeeze out of your marketing budget and tune yourself up for better success next year? The steps to do that are in our infographic. And so there is the link to go get it. The other thing is I'm going to be offering a full course. I'm just actually putting the final touches on the federal sales Q4 hot wash guide. This is going to be a 3-part lesson, and our partners at Government Marketing University, GovMarkU, now a GovExec company, are going to be presenting that in just a couple of weeks. So here's the link if you want to get more information and get invited to check out the program. It's going to be coming up in a couple of weeks, and you can grab that mid-September, take a look, and get yourself set up for a review with your team that can make all the difference to you as you get started on the fiscal year that's coming up very soon on October 1st. Here's the other thing I promised, a resource, the GovCon Personas Guide. I have 22 pages of goodness. This is a really deep guide that I don't share with just anybody, but this is the time of year when we're also looking ahead, but we got to be talking to the right person about the right thing at the right time. The GovCon Personas Guide can open that out and really get you thinking about the individual federal humans you're trying to have conversations with. This is free. Enjoy. That's what it's there for. This is our Players and Layers, or GovCon Personas Guide. Now, if your company is established in the federal market, you know what you're doing. You're looking to both grow organically. You're maybe looking to move up from subcontract to prime contract. You know what got you here won't get you there. I want to encourage you to consider working with me and my team on the Federal Business Intensive. It's not a course, not a class, not a database. It is just 8 weeks of hard work, but the clients who do the work are successful. And some of my clients have gone on to win. Well, I'll let you know more about their stories and let them tell your stories real soon. But this program is really effective. And if your company typically has more than 3 to 5 people that are involved in federal sales and business development, and you're edging up toward about 5 million in revenue, then the tools and the process I can give you, you're going to be able to execute that. And so that's, if you're interested, book a call with me, explore the program. Next wins if you're looking ahead, whether you're trying to just sort out, gee, how much do I want to be in the federal market right now? Or wondering, gee, if only I could sit down with Judy, what would she have to tell me about my federal journey? Government Contracts Made Easier is my best Amazon best-selling #1 book. And there's a workbook as well. Grab the book. You can get free chapter 1 right on my website. Get the book and the workbook. Thousands of companies have, and they're really glad they did. If you've got questions, you can also connect with me, judy.brad@growfedbiz.com. If you message me through LinkedIn, then let me know I was on your webinar. Let me know where you came from. And we're ready to take more questions. I've got resources for you, including other webinars, on demand stuff, a fabulous blog coming up. I'm going to be talking about the 5 allowable gifts. There are gifts you can give your federal buyer, and these are going to surprise you. This is all coming up on my blog. And so you can find that through the resource page of my website. Typically, the companies I'm working with one-on-one have been in business for more than 5 years. They got more than 5 million in revenue, and more than 5 people in the company are involved in federal sales and BD. But that's not always the case. So if you think we should talk, then let's have that conversation. Our next webinar coming up is Never Lose Again, the debriefing workshop with our wonderful, generous, smart friend, Maria Panicelli from Overmeyer out of Philadelphia and Washington. So register now. You're going to have all of these links in your follow-up email along with the recording. And so with that, I'm ready to take more questions, and we have more questions. Yay. So let's see. Someone wants to know, would you suggest reaching out to P-card users from this year and last? Well, if your federal buyers use purchase card to buy what you do, then maybe reaching out to the ones who have purchased from you before. If you have something that is a commodity, it's a supply that you know they buy a lot of at year end, great. Just saying, I have a list of P-card users. I'm going to spam them. I'll go back to the beginning. Please don't do that. If they don't know you, not so useful. Should you reach out to P-card users is not so much the right question to ask as, which P-card users will I reach out to? And do they buy what I offer? Okay, how's that for an answer to that question? I'm hoping that gets you a little bit further down the pike. Caitlin, we're excited that you're doing the Federal Business Intensive as well. It'll be great to get started. We're very pleased that you said yes. What criteria do you suggest for selecting the 3 agencies to work with? Shouldn't we consider more than just who buys the most of what we sell? Absolutely, you should. Other factors, but starting with the data is important, okay? Other things to consider. In the workbook, I go through both options for a qualitative and a quantitative analysis and where they come together. All right, the data is really helpful. That being said, think about the clients that you have now, the people, they pay you on time, they come back for more, they send their friends, they know when your birthday is, those people. Now, how big is the typical project or order that contract you have with those folks? What problem do you solve for them? Which federal agencies have a problem like that and are in a similar geographic location and have a size and scale and scope of a problem that is most similar to the people that are at the midpoint of your normal distribution curve? That if you talk to the federal buyer, you go, we've just solved your problem for someone who looks just like you yesterday afternoon. Want to talk? Those are the folks that intuitively will have a reason to at least start a conversation with you. Is this going to be instant? No, it's not. But if you're choosing, being able to choose places where there's enough people who need what you do that you're never going to run out of people to talk to, and they have requirements of a size and scale that matches particularly the kind of projects or you're doing or orders you're filling right now, will make them feel comfortable doing business with you. So those are some of the criteria that we look at. We also take a look at where competitors of a similar size to yours, where they're already being successful right now. If you know you have an advantage in customer service or value or price over 2 or 3 of your other competitors, where are they? And what kinds of conversations could you be having with the federal buyers who never heard of you, but are doing business with your competitors when you could really be beating the pants off them? So I hope that It gives you some things to think about. The workbook helps folks who want to do the do-it-yourself analysis and do their targeting. Targeting is one of the things that we do every time we're working with our clients, because there's 4 things you need to do when you want to be successful in the federal market. I'm going to tell you what all 4 of them are. All right. The first is beef up and buff up your federal sales game. Go deep in and learn a lot more than the GovCon Personas Guide tells you about what to do, what to say, and what to ask to build relationships with the players at all 5 layers. Second, get your competitive analysis nailed down and make a confident choice based on hard data of exactly where you're going to concentrate your efforts. Because once you do that, you're not going to get distracted by well-meaning solicitations and invitations to small business, yada, yada. You're going to stay focused on the people who need you and that you're most likely to win with. Third step, have a structured federal sales plan that helps you knit together the relationships with the people you know, with the people the data shows you don't know but need to know. And fourth, use the plan. That's actually the tough part. That's the reason why my clients and I work together. All right. Other folks like the book. Thank you. I'm so glad that you do. Let's see here. Yeah, there's no reason anybody here ever needs to come off spammy. If you do your homework and focus on what does my federal buyer, this lovely federal human, this dedicated public servant, how can I help them to deliver their mission, to be successful personally and professionally, and by bringing my best to them? This is the thing you really need to be thinking. That's the question you need most to be answering. So, Heather, what other questions do we have? Folks, if you've got a question now or want to put up a hand, we've just got someone saying, I just got an email from a contracting officer. Our sources sought closed about an hour ago. Do you have a capability statement or more information about your product? Let me know by the end of the day. SS would be sources sought. Okay. And so if you already responded to that sources sought, then they may be asking for more information. So that would be a good thing. If they have never heard of you and they're just asking for more information, finding out how they heard about you is a great thing. For goodness sake, get off my webinar and get them what they need. All right. So SS, sources sought, is most likely what that is. And a sources sought is a type of market research that a contracting officer will do when they want to know, hey, are there any small businesses? And if so, what kind of small businesses would be capable of doing this work at a fair and reasonable price and have good past performance? Okay. Would I suggest reaching out to P-card users from this year and last? Yes, if they buy what you do. Okay. Other thoughts, comments, questions, things that were helpful? What's your big aha that you took away? What's valuable for you out of what you learned from taking the time to show up here today? I'd love to know. What your contracting officer wants in federal Q4, how to give it to them. They want success. Keep these 3 things in mind. Follow the rules, help them look good, make it easy. Keep that wonderful trio of philosophies in mind. Am I doing all 3 of those things? Do them consistently, build the relationship and show up, and you'll be on your way to the success that you want. We're just about to close off. It's coming up to the top of the hour. Heather, any other final comments or questions? Anything else that folks need to know? You're here. You're going to get a follow-up email and a link to the recording by the end of the day tomorrow. Anything else?
I think we got it all. It was a great webinar. Thank you so much, Judy.
You are welcome. And Heather, please drop the information about transcendent marketing in the chat, and please put it in the follow-up email as well. If you are working on building your relationships in federal agencies, you think you might need a call program or better email or getting people to return your calls and email, Heather and the team that work with me at Transcendent Marketing have made all the difference. And I encourage you to get to know them as well, explore whether or not they could be helpful to you. So if you got a short time to reply to requests, that is really challenging. Let's pick up the conversation. Anybody else? All right. We will see you all soon on the webinar in September. Keep in touch, message me, let me know if there's something that you need. If I can't help you, I'll find somebody who can. I'm Judy Bratt, CEO of Summit Insight, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for coming.